winning, okay? So just have that disclaimer right up front. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming out on this lovely evening. Could I have approval of the agenda, please? Just before we vote on that, there's one small, we're moving number 7, public disclosure of in-camera items, up to the new number 4, and then renumbering after that. So with the amended agenda, could I have approval? Thank you. Could I have approval of the minutes of the education policy meeting from May the 9th, please? Thank you. Any business arising? Seeing none, we're going to the new number 4, which is public disclosure of an in-camera item, and I'll leave that to Secretary Treasurer Ambo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion that the board agreed to move out to the public meeting was the disclosure of the amount that we awarded the contract to Stantec Consulting for our facilities plan. It was $49,000 plus taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll be going to financial services, administrative reports to the committee, and number 1 there is the Wi-Fi technology in schools. And I'm going to turn the beginning of that process over to Trustee Ferris, who sat on the Wi-Fi committee, and he'll just go over the process that brought us to tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the November 2010 regular board meeting, a motion was passed for the district to create an ad hoc committee to review relevant information about Wi-Fi and to present their recommendations to the Operations Planning Committee by spring of 2011. The Wi-Fi Committee was created with members from district partner groups, including the Parent Advisory Council, Greater Victoria Teachers Association, Allied Specialists, Victoria Principals, Vice Principals, Trustees, and Administration. The Wi-Fi Committee held 3 public meetings, heard from 26 presenters, some of whom spoke on more than one occasion. The committee also accepted a very significant amount of volume of materials, and for those of you who have reviewed those materials, you will have done quite a read. Members of the Wi-Fi Committee met in early May 2011 to discuss the findings received to date and to discuss what they had heard from members of the public who presented. The minutes from that meeting are posted on our website. You're welcome to look at those. And so tonight we have a recommendation from that committee. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is a motion attached to the packet.
And that motion would be that the board accept the recommendation from the committee, which reads as follows: that the Board of Education, School District 61, Greater Victoria, continue to monitor documentation from the Vancouver Island Health Authority, the Provincial Health Officer, Health Canada, and the World Health Organization with regard to use of Wi-Fi in schools. Further, the Wi-Fi Committee recommends that the board reviews on an annual basis those recommendations and receives updates on any changes. The board will immediately follow guidelines issued by these authorities. The Wi-Fi Committee also recommends that the Provincial Health Officer be requested to research the implications of cumulative effects of electromagnetic frequencies, including cell phones, portable phones, smart meters, etc.
Thank you. Are there any speakers to the motion? Trustee Helmer?
So, what is that exactly? Does that mean that the provincial health officer be requested to research the implications of cumulative effects? Is that the board?
The board would then send a letter
to the chair
to the provincial health officer, letting you know of our concerns about issues.
Trustee Elko.
So I read the motion, and I'm wondering, what does that mean in terms of use of Wi-Fi in my elementary schools and middle schools and in secondary schools?
Secretary Treasurer?
Through you, Madam Chair, what that means is that we continue on as we have been in the past. The board has asked us to look at this. The committee has reviewed the information provided and believes that the medical authorities are the appropriate people to make the decision on the safety. And until that they make a decision that it's inappropriate to use those devices in places like schools and hospitals, that will continue on our process that we have been for the past while in putting in Wi-Fi in the schools when requested by the schools.
Trustee Orchardson?
Thank you. Everything is better in 2020 hindsight. And as the mover, as the bringing forward the motion to begin with respect to this committee, I wish I had asked that a moratorium be placed, but I understand at the same time there was grants being provided through the ministry to schools to encourage them to put Wi-Fi into the schools. We just were passed along some paperwork here from the Parliamentary Assembly and the International Agency for Research on Cancer, World Health Organization. I actually made a recommendation to the Wi-Fi committee. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend as I had planned due to family illness, but I'd asked that we have the provincial health officer research implications of the cumulative effects of electromagnetic frequencies, including all sorts, because we've been focusing on Wi-Fi, but our whole world is surrounded by devices that are giving off the effects of electromagnetic frequencies, and if we just focus on one, the reports may come out to say, yeah, they're minimal and they're not going to have an effect, but we need to look at the entirety of where the technology is going. There's proponents, strong proponents. I mean, we have teachers that come and talk to us about the great things, that the benefits of Wi-Fi, and sure, everybody is used to seeing all the benefits of what's going on, but the problem is, in my view, is technology is going faster than we can manage to monitor the health effects. And recently in the newspapers, there's been a number of articles about cell phone use, different electromagnetic frequencies, smart meters that are coming in. There's a letter to the editor in the TC. And I think this is much bigger than what we don't have the expertise of the board, which is why the Wi-Fi committee recommended it go to the province. But the motion is also talking about that the Wi-Fi committee recommends the board reviews on an annual basis. So I'm assuming the Wi-Fi committee will continue to do its work and continue to monitor these sorts of things. Interestingly enough, on the Parliamentary Assembly paper that was just given to us, number 6 says that despite calls for the respect of the precautionary principle and despite all the recommendations, declarations, and a number of statutory and legislative advances, there is still a lack of reaction to known or emerging environmental and health risks and virtually systemic delays in adopting and implementing effective preventative measures. Waiting for high levels of scientific and clinical proof before taking action to prevent well-known risks can lead to very high health and economic costs, as well as the case with asbestos, lead patrol, and tobacco. My grandfather was a mechanic in Toronto, and he worked with lead paint. And he died, it took him 2 years to die from the lead in his system. And he went blind, and I remember my 7-year-old auntie having to write us letters on his behalf. And it was considered safe at that time. And my concern, as many of us have, is it takes generations for us to see what the effects are going to be. I support this motion because we do need to send it forward to those that actually have the professional and academic wherewithal, but it does need to be followed up. And I do think that we need to make this broader than just in the public school system, to bring awareness in other segments, because everybody sees the benefits, but people aren't seeing what the negative parts of this are, and we won't for quite some time. And people poo-poo the idea that there are people with electromagnetic sensitivities. And until doctors and others start recognizing that there are legitimate illnesses that are derived from these things, it's a societal change, and this last comment is very true. It took a long time for people to realize how bad asbestos, leaded petroleum, and tobacco. I've actually got a cigarette container that craved an egg to soothe the sore throat, and it was something in society that everybody promoted. It was an in thing and everybody should do it. No, it's not, and it's a carcinogenic system. So there's way too much information, in my view, that raises questions that needs to be followed up, and I would be hoping and reassuring the public that the Wi-Fi committee continues to do the work of monitoring what's going on and pushing the provincial health officer to look broader into the various methodologies of systems and things that are being promoted that provide electromagnetic frequencies, and looking at them in their entirety, how much, even if we were, my last comment is, even if we were to stop Wi-Fi in the school, it's in the city, it's wherever you walk, it's Wi-Fi cafes, all sorts of things. So we have to get more of the public involved and to recognize the importance of affecting our youngsters. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I announce Linda as a speaker, just to let people know that we are being taped this evening. One of our audience guests has asked to tape this evening's proceedings, and I just felt it was fair to let you all know that you are being taped. So Linda, I'll let you come to the mic now.
Thank you. Somebody's got, is this a PowerPoint presentation? Do you want to do it? Is it on Wi-Fi?
No.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
So I can move it out of the way.
Yep.
Is this mic working? So thank you. I really am thankful for your committee meetings, because this is the one chance that we as members of the public get to enter dialogue with you. And I was also pleased to see today that the minutes of the May 2nd Wi-Fi committee were posted, and so I was able to go through them, and I have some questions, and so I'll start at the beginning. So 2 trustees on the Wi-Fi committee heard 28 speakers at the 3 Wi-Fi committee meetings. 3 speakers submitted materials in favor of wireless technology. 25 speakers submitted materials in favor of wired technology. And Peg, just to address sort of what you were talking about, we are in favor, those of us that want a second look taken at this, of technology. We all have it in our homes. But you can do it wired. We've just had our house so that our computers are now wired in, and we no longer have the deck cordless phones, and we've never had cell phones. So it's possible, and if you read a lot of the information, the wired technology is actually safer and faster. I'm pleased to see that at this School District 61 Summer Institute, August 25th and 26th, you're using Skype for a presenter. It was disappointing that that wasn't done during the Wi-Fi meetings to enable you to dialogue with Dr. David Carpenter, Director, Institute for Health and Environment, University of Albany, New York. The last Wi-Fi meeting was February 28th. In the March 4th Saanich News, Board Chair, Trustee Ferris, is quoted as saying, and I quote, "School District 61 has no plans to remove wireless internet from schools following the last of 3 Wi-Fi committee meetings Monday." End of quote. Having read the information over the last month and a half, no, sorry, not end of quote, he went on to say, having read the information over the last month and a half, I think it's more a question of deciding what, if any, the discussion points will be. And then, out of that, some recommendations might come. Wi-Fi Chair Ambo stated on April the 18th, entry on the School District 61 Wi-Fi website that, and I quote, "It is the Wi-Fi Committee's intent to develop a report and present their recommendations to the June 13th OPPS Committee meeting. The final recommendation from the OPPS Committee will be presented to the board on June 20th. So my first question goes to Trustee Ferris. If you already had plans, or if you already had no plans to remove wireless internet from schools, as stated in your March 4th press statement, what was your reason for having a Wi-Fi committee meet and receive presentations from many of us that are in this room tonight on January 24th, January 31st, and February 28th?
Did you have anything further than that?
For other people, so I'd like his answer.
So where did you get the quotes from?
From the March 4th press statement in the Saanich News.
Have you ever been interviewed by the newspaper?
Yes.
And do you find that your whole interview is quoted word for word?
I find if I was accurate in the interview that yes, it's usually done accurately.
So if you spoke 1,000 words, you get 1,000 words in the newspaper?
No, what I then would do an opinion piece.
Right. So, first of all, I would say that I would have told the reporter, and I have no recollection of the interview other than that I did it, but that we hold these meetings so that we can hear from the public, so that we can hear the public's opinion. And for myself personally, I would like to think that I would withhold my opinion about the outcome until the end of the proceedings. Do you have any further questions?
What I'll do is send you the article or the thing, and as you did with the one on the stand pack.
You may do that, Linda, but I think that you're implying that something that, personally, I don't, I would like to think that I'm not the person you're telling me I am. Thank you.
Well, you might want to retract it because there's many of us that...
Well, I just have retracted it, haven't I? I've just said that what I would have told the reporter is that we are holding the public meetings so that we can hear from the public. And the committee will make its recommendation. And of course, it will make its recommendation no matter what Tom Ferris thinks, because I'm just one person.
Mr. Harris, if I may just interject just for a moment, that comment, the statement that Linda was just referring to, you were also heard on the radio, CBC, saying the exact same thing.
So Linda, do you have any other comments?
I have questions for other people.
So,
Unless Tom wants to reply to Tammy.
no,
I believe what she's telling me.
And trustees may or may not interact with you on the questions that you're asking as well. So just to be clear on that.
Well, Tom is on the Wi-Fi committee, so that's why that question. So, Tammy, you heard the same quote on CBC radio.
It was heard, that same quote was heard on CBC Radio.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer Ann Bull, when will the Wi-Fi committee report be posted on the website or distributed?
Which report? Tonight's report? It can be posted tomorrow, I guess.
So there's a report that those of us that made...
There was a report issued last week. You'll probably find it if you wish to refer to our board agenda with the pack-up attached. That's sitting on our website for the Ops Committee. The report, the one-page report, is included in that. That was released, I believe, a week and a half ago.
That's got the motion or something in it?
Yes.
I was sort of expecting a report summing up what all
The
members
report was
said.
to be a recommendation from the committee as to a motion what would be the result of the findings of the committee. The findings of the committee were, if you'd like me to read it again, that the Board of Education, School District 61, continues to monitor documentation from Vancouver Island Health Authority, the Provincial Health Officer, Health Canada, and the World Health Organization with regard to the use of Wi-Fi in schools. Further, the Wi-Fi Committee recommends that the Board reviews on an annual basis those recommendations and receives updates on any changes. The Board will immediately follow guidelines issued by these authorities. The Wi-Fi Committee also recommends that the Provincial Health Officer be requested to research the implications of the cumulative effects of electromagnetic frequencies, including cell phones, portable phones, smart meters, etc.
This was put, this page was put on the, was it on the website as the part of the agenda package? So this is already on there. It's on our website as the agenda package for tonight.
I have the minutes of the May 2nd meeting with the individual people that were on the committee, their comments, and I had just assumed that those comments, since they were the people that were representing the trustees, many of whom were not at any of the meetings, would have been put into a report. But I can use the minutes tonight for that. To trustees Horsman and Alpha, you attended one of the Wi-Fi committee meetings. What conclusions did you take away from your attendance at that meeting that night?
Well, I took away that the evidence wasn't conclusive, but that there is something, that there is enough evidence there that we should be concerned. My thought is that certainly in kindergarten to grade 5, because of the connection between young heads and brains not having as much protection as older heads and brains, that we should be really looking at that level in terms of Wi-Fi. And basically there was a pretty clear indication that younger children were more at risk than older children and adults because of that lack of protection to the brain because of the lack of bone development in the head. So, that's what I got.
I also found the meeting very interesting, and I would agree. It's clear that there are a lot of articles and opinions on both sides. I didn't find it a conclusive argument, but I think that the way that this motion is heading tonight here, which is asking authorities that have more specific expertise in the area than the board to continue to monitor the situation and make recommendations, because I felt that, well, this committee, this motion is asking VHA and the provincial health officer to declare what's safe and what isn't safe, and is promising to follow whatever the declaration is. But I personally didn't think that the workings of the committee were conclusive enough, and I'd like to hear from those people. I'd like, especially the provincial health officer.
My concern with the motion that you just said, you haven't given them a deadline. So, 5 years from now, we could hear from them. That's my concern there.
Well, the implication is that they monitor the research on an ongoing basis, and if they're going to draw a conclusion, they should share it with us at the first possible moment.
I don't know.
And their conclusion may very well be that it's not a danger, but whatever their conclusion is, we'd like to hear from our own provincial health leaders what the recommendation would be.
Maybe you can rework the motion so we can do a time limit or something on that. To trustees Holland, Leonard, McAvoy, and Young. You were not in attendance at any of the Wi-Fi meetings. Have you read any of the written material submitted to the committee? If so, what conclusions have you come to? If not, how do you intend to make an informed decision?
Do you have any further comments, Mrs. Travers?
Well, I'll just wait for an answer. This is the night when we can enter dialogue, and so I don't care who goes first. There was no order. Would you like, as chair, to go first?
I will record what my decision is when I vote on the motion.
Trustee Leonard? Sorry, Trustee Holland?
Yeah, I'll say whatever I have to say.
So, in other words, I assume that you have not read any of the written material, because the question was 2 points. Have you read any of the written material submitted to the committee, and if so, what conclusions have you come to?
Well, the conclusion will be clear when I vote on the motion.
Could I just institute a point of order here? Linda, when people make presentations to the board, you make your presentation. If somebody decides to comment back to you, that's their choice. But you can't just stand there and insist that people answer you, because that's not the way the interaction at standing committee works. I mean, you have the right to come to the microphone and say anything you like, but you don't have the right to harass somebody into responding to your presentation. You make your presentation. If people want to reply, they do. And if they don't want to reply, they take it under advisement. And that's meant to be the interaction. Also, just while I'm on the explanation of how the standing committee rules of order work, if somebody here makes a comment and somebody else wants to make a comment or ask a question, they put their hand up and they're recognized in due course. But it's not, you can make your comments, but you cannot insist that somebody reply to your comment. What you can insist is that they listen to your comment and take it under advisement.
Well, that's disappointing, because my understanding at the committee meetings is that we can enter dialogue. I mean, I'll be standing up here for 5 minutes next week to give a speech, but I don't know if you hear me. I never get any response. And
so if I might say, the direction that I'm feeling that you were giving us around the board is you're questioning the integrity of every trustee here. We have had multiple committee meetings over a variety of issues over the last 15 years that I've been on the board. Every trustee gets the information, they come to the board, they make a decision, and you're questioning the integrity of every person around this table. And I agree with Trustee Horsman that we can choose or not choose to engage you in that conversation, but I would never say to you the things you're saying to us right now, because we have given you the opportunity to come to the table and say whatever you want. And we are given that same right to speak or not speak in response to whatever you have said. But I just feel that you're in question. If I say nothing to you, you're questioning my integrity. And I believe that I read everything that comes across my desk. And so then I would come here and make the decision at the board table, which is what most trustees do. So If you have anything further to say, we'd be happy to hear it.
My problem is, of course, that the board gave the committee the information. I don't know if you got the information that those of us that presented at 3 meetings did. Trustee McAvoy is not here this evening. Trustee Young?
I'm not sufficiently informed about this very complicated matter to vote one way or the other, so I'm abstaining at the moment until I feel I'm well enough informed that I can make an intelligent decision one way or the other.
Thank you. Decision making. You as trustees have an awesome responsibility. You need to consider putting first things first and doing no harm to the most vulnerable, our children, your students, and many of our grandchildren. Your decisions mean hearing public input, considering potential consequences, and managing risk. You need to adhere to your mission statement, and I'm always delighted to have a meeting in the boardroom because it's right up there. The Greater Victoria School District is committed to each student's success in learning within a responsive and safe environment. Your colleagues in School District 63 Saanich updated their use of technology and information systems with discussions starting in January 2011. And I know this board started discussions in November 2011. They approved a motion on April 13th. School District 63's policy 3130 says, no Wi-Fi installations in elementary schools. In middle and secondary schools, managed Wi-Fi environments may be installed in adult workplaces, including staff rooms and offices as necessary. Middle schools will have up to 25% coverage of student areas, with the understanding being that there will be spillover of the signal as described in Guiding Principles 12. With the locations to be determined in accordance with educational needs as described in IEPs and overall educational needs for the school as determined with staff and the Parent Advisory Council. Secondary schools, wide Wi-Fi coverage. The Information Technology Department will be responsible for all Wi-Fi installations and will ensure that all wireless access points are managed, commercial grade, and as localized as possible. Their Form 3130B, expectations for students using electronic communications systems under wireless. I understand that the school may provide access to wired internet connections, and that if I have any concern in that regard, including health concerns, I will make them known to an administrator. Should these concerns be sufficient to require limiting daily exposure, I and my parents will make those concerns known to a school administrator. On February 22, 2011, the Greater Victoria Teachers Association approved a precautionary approach. I'll quote one of their sentences. The fact that many other countries have instituted regulations to protect children, seniors, pregnant women, and other susceptible populations should be the guide for a district policy on Wi-Fi installation and use in the workspace. I like what the International Commission for Electromagnetic Safety, ICEMS, and I can give you the website, www.icems.eu/. It's a non-profit organization that promotes research to protect public health from electromagnetic fields and develops the scientific basis and strategies for assessment, prevention, management and communication of risk based on precautionary principle. It states, and I quote, "When there are indications of possible adverse effects, though they remain uncertain, the risks from doing nothing may be far greater than the risks of taking action to control these exposures." The precautionary principle shifts the burden of proof from those suspecting a risk to those who discount it. And I'll stop there because I know there are other speakers. That precautionary principle does for me a lot, because at the beginning of this presentation, I told you that there were 25 speakers that submitted materials in favor of wired technology. There were 3 speakers that submitted materials in favor of wireless technology. And yet there's a motion before you tonight that basically doesn't listen to 25 people. I went through the minutes today and made notes on what the various committee members recommended, and I hope that you trustees have all had a chance to read them today. I guess my big thing is that I suggest more time is needed for discussion. I'd like to recommend that you table tonight's motion so it is not forwarded to the June 20th Board of Education meeting. I think there needs to be more information from the Board of Trustees. We have lots from the Wi-Fi Committee, and you heard 25 members of the public that are wanting wireless done. I've also provided you tonight with what School District 63 is doing, and so I think a lot more dialogue is needed. And I would also hope that no money from the 2011-2012 budget, if you decide to table this motion, will be spent until a new motion is passed. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. Are there any other trustee speakers? Trustee Alpha and then Trustee Orchardson.
Well, having read some of the information, not all of it, there's a lot of it. I do think a precautionary principle is needed at the elementary level. And I just would like to, have further discussion around that. And I think bringing this motion forward to the June meeting is a little fast, considering that the Wi-Fi meeting is just wrapped up. So I'm going to bring a motion at the board meeting the June board meeting, that we table this motion to the fall so that we can have more time to consider things like the Senate policy, like the concerns around young children's brains, but also I know, like I heard on the CBC and then looked into it a little further, that a very recent piece of research has just come forward, and there is more concern around Wi-Fi and cell phone use and brain cancers, to be honest. So I do think we need to have more of a precautionary principle than we have at present, and that we really should be certainly looking at the elementary grades. I mean, I know this is going to sound strange around the board table, but when I think of my own children and I remember how soft their heads were, and then I think of the dangers that we don't know. Just like with asbestos, we used to think It was a really great building tour. And we don't know what electromagnetic waves would do inside of a young child's head. But we do know that soft phones let them in a lot more than more formed skulls do. So we do know that older is better. That's one thing we know for certain out of all of this. The rest of it, it's inconclusive, as Trustee Horseman said, but I think being precautionary around those young, soft heads is a good idea. So I'm going to be bringing a motion that we table till the fall so that we can have more time for discussion and more time for review and possible consultation around the newest research that's come up.
So just before I go to Trustee Orchardson, it does say in the motion that we are reviewing annually though. So it's not as if this committee is, and the work and the information is not coming back to us on an annual basis, just to make that clear. Trustee Orchardson?
Thank you. And just to follow up from Trustee Alpha's comments and her intent, I don't think that tabling this motion would have any effect on continued work on the precautionary issues as you're talking about in elementary school. What this motion is saying is that we recognize, and I only have like a third of the information, because a lot of it came by email, and quite technical, and there's a lot to read. But this at least gets something going, and I would suggest that we do make an amendment of some sort of timeline, considering the time of year, that we get something back from the provincial health officer, so that it's not just hanging there. I think that was a good point that Linda raised. But it certainly doesn't preclude another motion being brought forward, Trustee Alpha, to say, look, we think we need there shouldn't be Wi-Fi in K to 6, right? K to 5. And I would certainly be willing to support that. I wanted to go back, I've got a couple of things. Originally, when I brought the motion forward, I had asked the Secretary-Treasurer about the cost of Wi-Fi versus wired in. And my recollection was that it was less expensive for Wi-Fi than the wiring in.
Depends upon circumstances.
Okay. I also now, what would those circumstances be through the chair too? And also, is there not licensing fees, and how expensive are they, and how frequently are they paid?
It depends on where Madam Chair, where it's significantly less expensive to put Wi-Fi in a portable than it is to trench, put in coax with conduit, and run with capital. Particularly if you're trying to do a bundle of 30 for the classroom, where you put in one Wi-Fi access point with that into the building. There is no licensing fee that comes with when you buy the Wi-Fi access point. That includes the cost for that. When you're trying to run 30 cables to every classroom, we haven't done the cost because it's not practical to put 30 Cat 5 cables in the classroom with 25 whatever number of students we have. It's more efficient, and that's what we've always done. We've usually had computer labs in schools and kids get up and move. But if we start talking about the new trends in education, and I'm sure my friends sitting behind you can answer all the rationales for the different types of equipment. But from a mechanical point of view, to have a computer, every classroom with 30 wires running over the floor, it's a trip hazard, a safety hazard. You may get more security, but we use all the latest technology. It's nothing is 100% safe, including wired, because people can go in and cut into the wires and do a connection that way. They can use key loggers, and that's what happened in Seattle, where one school was broken into. It was a wired connection that a student
something into the teacher's computer that captures the keystrokes and you have to password it and you log on. So that's how they got into it, nothing to do with wireless. So I gave you that sense because it really is that kind of a nebulous regime that took the work in. We're trying to provide, at the request of the schools, a flexible way for the students to learn.
Thank you. It may be helpful before the next meeting if we could get some of those samples and some costing ideas so that we, are actually looking at some of those examples. And I just want to respond to a comment that Linda made about not being against technology. I'm not against technology, but sometimes I'd like to avoid it. Thank you very much. But I also want to say that it's the effects that we're having the conversation about, and we have not had the time. And we're relying on Health Canada and the World Health Organization, and I've been collecting articles for some time. This one's dated December 11, 2010, and it's titled MPs Want Way to Report Wi-Fi Worries, and it speaks to recommendations by a committee of MPs that held a series of hearings on the potential impact of radio frequency electromagnetic radiation on health. Electromagnetic radiation is emitted from a number of devices. I won't go on to list them because I think we're all familiar with the majority of them. The committee heard from a number of witnesses who presented conflicting evidence and opinions on how Canada regulates exposure to radiation, whether cell phones can make people sick. Parents, upset about the use of Wi-Fi networks in their children's schools, told MPs about students have experienced headaches, dizziness, and we've heard direct examples from some of the presenters at meetings. But the last paragraph is what causes me concern, and goes back to my point that there has to be a much bigger and broader interest brought on this, because it says, contrary to the views expressed by some scientists, who likely were some of those 25 speakers Linda referred to, who appeared before the committee, Health Canada officials said the regulations, known as Safety Code 6, are already stringent and regularly reviewed to ensure they are in line with scientific evidence. I dare say that, are they keeping up with it on a regular basis? I also am interested in School District 63's motion that they just passed, but curious about who determines what limiting the exposure is on the expertise, because that's why this motion was drafted, is that we at the district don't have the expertise. So we're receiving information, and Linda's correct in the amounts of the pro versus the con, but it needs to be referred to people that actually can look into all the implications and not just necessarily Wi-Fi in and of itself. So I think it's going to be up to us and to you as a public to ensure that we continue to monitor what's going on. Unfortunately, we do have Wi-Fi in schools, and I think one of the things that we're going to have to consider, along with Trustee Elba's potential motion for the fall about K-5, is Wi-Fi free zones, if there is such a thing, for those students who are suffering the effects, or staff, or anybody else, because we've had,